Hello, Bart?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah, hi there. I really apologize about that. This is John. You're on with us right now here on this week's Long Island News. And we're here to discuss the article that you wrote this week that basically discusses the immediate effects of the green light law being passed. It was entitled, LI DMV offices packed with undocumented immigrants seeking driver's license. Correct? So
right. Yep, that's right.
So let's get right into it. I know that throughout the state, we've seen a lot of discussion about this law over the years, and it finally came into effect. And we saw definitely a response and saw some long lines there. So can you tell our listeners all about that?
Yeah, well, it was really kind of stunning. I pulled into the Medford DMV office Tuesday morning and had no idea what to expect. And there was a long line of people. I mean, outside of the office, it must have been about 150 people. And what was really incredible, the weather was just absolutely horrendous. I mean, it was freezing cold, and it was this rain coming down. And, these are mainly folks from Central America, where it's a little bit kind of tropical down there. So it was tough. And, in fact, I was out there in the cold myself. I'm feeling the effects of it today. I'm paying for it. I'm a little under the weather myself.
Well, we're sorry to hear that, but we're glad that, people were out there like yourself to tell us exactly what was happening on the ground. That's, definitely a big part of the policy change and seeing how it actually comes to fruition. But, yeah, like you said, I know we saw, I'm from Queens, and I saw at the DMV over in College Point, local reports about just how massive those lines were, and it seemed to be, like you said, different DMVs throughout the island all experienced pretty much the same things.
Oh, yeah. Later on that day, I went over to Massapequa. And by the way, Medford inside was just jam-packed. And that's why the line was going, well outside along the other stores in the mini-mall there.
Yeah.
I later went over to Massapequa. Even more people. I mean, it was incredible. I think there was a line of probably about 300 people standing, inside, snaking up and down the hallways outside the DMV office. So, huge turnout.
Yeah.
Seems like some of the people, according to the advocates, some of them were under the impression there were only a limited number of permits being handed out. So that might be part of the reason they were all flocking there. But
I see.
Beyond that, I mean, this was really something that they had been hoping for years. I mean, this is a huge moment for them. It makes their lives so much easier. They can drive without being afraid of the police pulling them over and getting tickets and fines and all kinds of problems, maybe even being put in touch with the immigration services. The people I spoke to also really, it was symbolic. I mean, it was really a sign that they were being accepted in the society, that they were seen as somewhat equal partners.
Yeah.
Now, but that said, that was their point of view. I certainly heard from a lot of other people that were kind of outraged by this.
Of course.
And, their point of view was, hey, these people are here illegally. Why are they getting licenses?
Yeah. No,
and it definitely provoked a reaction on the other side. So, great joy and celebration. I heard many reports of, complete strangers in the DMV offices hugging each other, celebrating, cheering when somebody came out with their driver's permit. Just a kind of an amazing scene.
Yeah, no, definitely a unique day at the DMV for most. Definitely more.
Not your typical day at the DMV.
No, seems not. And I'm sure the staff there, as we heard about the trainings and the, preparation that was put into getting ready for this change, I'm sure that they were even somewhat caught maybe off guard in a positive way, if you'd like, to see the response that people did come out for whatever reason pretty quickly, literally the day of.
Yeah, no, they came out immediately, and it went on for the 3 days, really, in large numbers. By Wednesday, the numbers went down a little bit.
Okay.
But still, still packed offices, really kind of an amazing scene.
Yeah, so just the fact that you were there at the DMVs that day, obviously seeing a lot of advocates and people who are undocumented, really appreciating the moment. Did we see any incidents of people directly kind of counter-protesting or having any kind of confrontations about the issue? Or thankfully it seems that everything was kind of handled relatively calmly?
Yeah, I didn't see any direct signs of confrontations, but I did hear from people, over the email and that type of thing. One guy said he was there and he was really outraged by this. He's a legal American U.S. citizen, and he said, he had to wait a really long time to get in to do some kind of, standard license exchange or something. So,
yeah,
he was definitely upset about it. I mean, it definitely provoked emotions on both sides of the issue.
Definitely. Like you said, it's been a very politically charged issue, and given everything going on nationally with immigration and just the nature of this policy being talked about for so long in the state, it makes sense why that would be so. I guess in terms of seeing how it's probably going to affect maybe life after the licenses. I know advocates talked about the nature of helping families kind of assimilate and come out of the shadows. I guess, is that obviously the best case scenario of why this policy was put out? Is that what they said?
Yeah, and to backtrack a little bit on one of those points too, one of the advocates was saying too that by obtaining these licenses, this was really kind of a counter to a lot of the anti-immigrant rhetoric they've heard out of the Trump administration. So, he said these people have really felt abandoned for the last 2.5 years, and this was a sign by the state of New York, at least, that, they were being supported and accepted. So that was kind of interesting.
Okay.
Going forward, go ahead.
I was going to say, and this was the 13th state, that's correct, that passed a similar piece of legislation?
I think there's 15 states now. New Jersey just approved it on Monday, as a matter of fact. And I think that includes like Washington, D.C., but 15 states or locations.
Okay.
So it's a bit of a trend at this point.
Interesting.
But again, definitely provoking, some resistance to it as well. We know there's a county clerks in upstate New York that are basically refusing to grant these licenses.
Yeah.
So,
we spoke about that issue, and we recounted the story last week right before it took effect. And like you said, it certainly wasn't fully settled, but I know there was some specific finding in a case, I think in Buffalo, that proved that, again, the grounds for the standard for burden of proof was kind of basically higher, that it couldn't be politically motivated. It had to be kind of data empirically driven, that it would affect the community negatively. And to that point, I know that we talked about also in California and in other places, there has been research done to see that theoretically there is positive outcome long term, but it takes time to get that research done. I guess, is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. And, you were asking also about going forward, what does this mean for the people? Mm-hmm. Obviously it's a hugely symbolic thing for them. They feel like they're becoming part of the American fabric. But I think one of the interesting questions too, and one of the advocates brought this up, or maybe I was asking, but, what about these people they are coming out of the shadows, but isn't that also making them vulnerable to immigration authorities? I mean, now the government now has your name and your address, and you've admitted that you're here illegally. So, would that not perhaps provoke, ICE coming in and raiding? Raiding and arresting people. Now, the advocates, insisted that they've been promised. That's not going to happen. That's not what this is all about. Mm-hmm. But it would certainly seem to raise that question. Of
course.
Because you've now, number one, admitted you're here illegally. Number two, handed over all your identification information to the government.
It's a leap of faith, but I know that was a very key sticking point to a lot of the legislators and making sure that this policy would, protect the people that it intended to protect legally. So, that definitely is a very legitimate concern that, I'm sure we'll see continue to play out. I guess, what else do you think in terms of just the overall kind of immediate effects that we'll see in terms of any other counter legislation or counter measures that are going to be taken locally? Is there anything that you expect to be done or has been talked about, or is it kind of just set that this law is passed now? I don't know of any locally. I mean, I know in Suffolk County we've got Steve Ballone as the county executive now. He's been a lot more pro-immigrant, certainly under the Steve Levy administration. A decade or so ago, there was tremendous conflict over the illegal immigrants. Yeah. We had the killing of Marcelo Lucero in Patchogue in 2008. Mm-hmm. We had the Mexicans that were abducted up in Farmingville and nearly killed the day laborers. So, there was tremendous pushback at that time. We had national anti-immigrant groups coming into town in Suffolk County to protest, to all kinds of things. That seems to have calmed down. And as I say, we have a different administration in Suffolk County now, so we don't see the same kind of rhetoric coming out of the Malone administration, I don't think. Okay. So, right now,
I don't see any particularly organized effort, and this has been, approved as law.
Yeah, exactly. It's
signed by Governor Cuomo and approved by the legislature, so it's law right now. There's
and that's another one of those big outcomes of having a state Senate and Assembly and Albany change its makeup to a Democratic-controlled Senate. And I know that's going to play into the elections, I'm sure, and people's electoral strategies coming up in this next cycle, piece of legislation like this. So, yeah. Right.
That's an immediate, huge impact. This is something the immigrant community has been fighting for 20 years now, a long battle, and they finally got it. So it's a huge moment for them, and it's also a pretty big moment for their opponents.
Yeah, exactly. That is something that should not be overseen. The fact that, like you said, it will be seen as a rallying point and even political fundraising issue potentially, understandably by Republican challengers in certain districts. So that's a lot to consider. I guess, is there any other just points that you think that just to kind of tie it in with a bow, the listeners should really know going into the future?
Well, I just, I think you see the arguments on both sides. I mean, on the so-called, long-time U.S. citizen point of view, these people came here illegally. How can we possibly give them not even just the right, but the privilege to drive? So, you can see that point of view. But then you also see the point of view as immigrant advocate Patrick Young told me, look, these people are here and they're not leaving. And so if you deny them the ability to have a legal driver's license, they're not going to go back home. That's not going to cause them to go back home.
Exactly. They've been driving in communities, and the concern of issues of persecution affecting things like hit and run and other types of incidents, like you said, that definitely has been something that's been spoken about for a long time. I just last quick maybe question: is there been any kind of discussion about how this may affect drivers' insurance rates in the state of New York? Is there any discussion about that?
I don't know exactly about rates, but I mean, that's one other point they made is that, this is now going to require all these immigrants to go out, get a legal driver's license, take the test, get the proper training, become better drivers, get car insurance. So, if you're in an accident with someone and they have no insurance, that's not a good thing. So, their argument is that this is going to just make things better for everybody. And, some of the immigrants even kind of admitted when they got into an accident, they would leave the scene because they were here illegally. They had no license. They can get themselves in a lot of trouble. So that's kind of the argument on that side is, it's going to be better for everybody.
I understand. Well, let's all hope that that is the case. I'm sure that everyone wants everyone to be safer on the streets, regardless of other political perspectives. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you again very much, Bart. We look forward to following up on this story and other stories that you write in Newsday. And is there anywhere that people can follow where you write specifically on social media?
I would just go to the Newsday website is the best way to see our work.
Yep. And that's definitely a good way.
I'll throw a pitch in, obviously subscribe to Newsday. We need the support of the public to survive in this day and age when journalism is under attack financially.
Of course.
We need all the help we can get.
And
so
we see that,
I encourage people to subscribe.
Most definitely, we do too.
And it's worth it. I mean, we're kind of the big enchiladas here on Long Island.
Yeah, there aren't a lot left, unfortunately, of good newsrooms, that have the funding to do the great journalism and investigations that you guys do, as we saw recently with the issue of the housing inequities potentially, again, alleged by real estate brokerage firms. So thank you again very much, and for all your colleagues' work, as always. We wish you a good rest of the year and happy holidays, and we look forward to speaking to you at some other point. Take care.
Thanks so much. Take care. Bye-bye.